So today I'm working on a order for someone that has requested a 3-color ombre. One of those colors is a chunky mix. So it's been a bit since I've done a 3-color ombre, so we're gonna see how this works out. I've already spray painted my cup. I used regular white. It's like a semi-gloss. Some people prefer one brand over another. I bounce back and forth based on whatever brand has the free 25% more. We all know it's not free, but if I don't have to pay a little bit more for it than the other, then fine. So this is a semi-gloss white here, and this one is called Ballet Slippers. I think it's Krylon. I'm not sure, but I like to try and do my base color similar to my glitter colors. So she wants the top to be White Wedding. Again, I'm using Fran's glitterandmore.com. It's just my favorite glitter seller, even though I do have some from a couple others. Moana in the middle. It's kind of a little darker than rose gold, but darker than a blush, but not quite a magenta or pink or whatever. And then this one is called Dawson. I love it so much. It has tiny, tiny little stars in the mix. And it's just kind of holographic, and it just picks up everything. So that's a super cute one. I don't get to use this one enough for my preference. So I am about to mix up some epoxy. You really need a thin coat on here. If it's too thick, it really, the glitter just absorbs into it, makes big lumpy looking stuff and flat spots. So we want it thin because we're going to sprinkle this on there and hope for that glittery, not matte, like flat, oily looking finish. I like to put it thicker wherever I'm going to start the chunky. I put my epoxy thicker right there. Not everybody does that, but that's kind of my personal preference because I feel like it really gets in there and on there. A lot of times for the bottom part, I'll just pick one of the other colors, and since my bottom is pink, I'll go ahead and just throw the Moana on the bottom. For that, it's just a little easier for me to not have to do the chunky bottoms like this one right here. This one's not finished, but I used one color here and then all my chunky on the side right there. I just feel like it makes it a lot easier to accomplish a finished, not lumpy bottom. Everyone has their own personal preference, so whatever works for you. So I'm going to go mix up the epoxy, and then I will get to the next part in just a second. All right, so I've got my epoxy mixed. You won't see any weird, like, cloudy spots. There are air bubbles. I really don't care about that right now because of what we're about to do. If this was a top coat of epoxy, totally different story, but just for now, these air bubbles, by the time we get this smoothed on, it's really not going to matter because we're about to glitter over it. So anyways, you'll see that it's pretty well mixed. There's no like little oil slicky looking things in there, no cloudy spots other than the air bubbles. So for where the fine glitter goes, we want a super thin layer. I like to do mine this way, and I'm actually kind of squeegeeing it all the way around, and I'll make one full pass, and then I like to do this, kind of get it up to the rim. I'm also spreading it down here as well whenever I'm doing that. Whatever's on my finger is getting pushed down here, and then kind of go this way. I personally feel like if I get it too thin, I don't get good enough coverage, but too thick will definitely cause those ugly flat spots that just looks like an oily place on your really pretty glitter. So just kind of do that, and you want to keep your eye out too for any spots that look like they're dry. Sometimes, especially when you're touching it like I was earlier without gloves, you'll get kind of an oil resistant area, like it has oil, so it's not going to let the epoxy lay properly. So just kind of make sure you have that on there properly. And then right about here is where I plan on starting my chunky. So that's about where I'm going to start making it a little thicker than the rest of the cup. Because the chunky, it's just, if it's too thin, it doesn't grab enough of that mixture. The supplier, again, I love the mixes I get from her. It's not just a one size chunky mix that she uses. So it's got the 3, sometimes more, I think, sizes that are going to fill in all those, the spots that you don't get coverage for if you were using a single sized glitter. So we're going to go here. But like I said earlier, I like to do a little bit different color. I like to put a fine on the bottom of my cup. So I'm going to put it nice and thin on here, but not too thin, because again, it won't get you full coverage if you don't have it thick enough on there. But again, too thick and you'll get those flat spots. So that is about right. Right there was a drier spot. And before I start my chunky, I'll also make sure that it kind of settled the way I wanted it to. I had kind of a bare spot right there. So, like I said, right about there is where I plan on starting that chunky mixture. And again, I want to make sure that I get all the way up to the rim. By the time we get the blend of this first 2 colors done, this should be ready for us to use for the chunky. A lot of people recommend letting it kind of thicken, I guess is a good word. Cure a little bit, whatever you want to call it. So we're going to put a little something down right here, just for the moment. We're going to catch our fall off. Got my white wedding, and we're going to start right here at the top. There we go. Nice and thick right there at the rim. We want to make sure we don't end up with any bare spots up there, because it's kind of a pain in the butt to fix it if you have to go back for that. So just going to bring it down a little bit. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. Zoom in just a little bit. See how I've got that kind of going down a little ways? I don't want a solid line, because when I ombre, I need it to kind of blend, which is the whole point of ombre. Duh, my bad. So we're going to put on there, but any spots that I see that look oily, we're going to address that and put a little bit more glitter on there. There's that, and then I'm just going to kind of sprinkle it from a little higher so I get a little bit more right in here. Kind of where my pink on my spray paint is starting to turn. You can kind of see how flat that looks. It may be hard to see on camera, but kind of doesn't really stand out off the cup like the rest of it does, like right in here it does. So I'm going to leave that be, and then get a different tray. I'll clean these off in a little bit. But we're going to get a different tray to hold under the pink. And remember, right in here is where I started that thicker epoxy layer. So I don't want to go right up on where I left off on the other, because I want to be able to blend it on my own terms. You can see where it's really, really dark in these parts. That's where it's soaked right into the epoxy already. And then the really sparkly parts are the areas that the glitter is not soaked in, just kind of adheres to. kind of get that, not super solid of a line, but not so far down that it takes forever to cover it. And then this, we're going to go right about there. Okay, so I'm going to put the lid back on here because I want it to be a little bit more limited. I'm going to go close this window because the wind is blowing my glitter. Even though that window was 10 feet away, it was making this not quite as smooth as it could. So I'm going to just kind of do this. See how it's kind of blending up there? I'm not the best ombre person in the world, but as long as you get it pretty close, it looks like you're pretty decent at it. But all those darker spots, that is definitely where the epoxy has absorbed all the glitter. So the way I like to do my ombres, I like to kind of go this way with the second color. And then I'll go back over it. This is not coming out like I want it to. I'll go back over in a minute with the first color to kind of fill in those spots. Another trick that some people like to use is to mix kind of 50-50 of the two colors that you're doing and kind of pour that over that combine or that the connecting area. I definitely have some spots that need some more attention. I'm gonna go a little heavier handed right here. Kind of get those flat spots addressed. So this is going to end up being a cute little Mama Llama cup. She's got 3 kids cups to go along that kind of match each of the kids' favorite colors and personalities and all of that. Which is super cute. This is a Christmas gift for her and her kids. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do on that. I like to catch as much glitter as I can just so that I can dump it back in. If you do this, make sure that you are not underneath that first color to kind of get some of your extra there. So I'm going to go back to this guy. And we're going to go right over this line again. Not super heavy-handed or else we'll end up with too much white over the pink. But enough that we definitely absorb all of the, or get it out of where it's not absorbed by the epoxy. If that makes sense. So kind of like that. It's pretty decent. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. So I'm going to take the tray out from under and just kind of pat it there. I've got this silicone mat under here. Every once in a while, I'll pick off all the epoxy pieces and then I'll just kind of scoop it all up. We'll see what kind of mix it ends up making later on. It might be hideous. It might be pretty. Who knows? So since I wanted to do the bottom in this pink, I'm going to do that right now. But not so much that, hello. I don't want to go up the side of my cup. I'm going to do just that flat part. Usually I'll kind of dump it on there, kind of at this funny angle. Kind of like that. Just kind of watch it as it turns. because you're going to dump all this back into your container anyway, so it's not that big of a deal that you are going crazy with what's coming out. And then just watch for those slick spots. This is probably the most countrified way of doing this. It makes me think of like shoveling hay and straw with a pitchfork, but it does the job, so that's all I'm really worried about. I do see one little tiny spot on here that didn't get all the epoxy on it that I needed, so I've got kind of a dry spot. I'm just gonna dab it with my finger. I dipped my finger in epoxy real quick, and kind of do that. Oops, I tapped it, that's okay. I keep hitting it. That's what I get for trying to watch what I'm doing and talk. But we're just gonna do that until I stop seeing slick spots. And just check to make sure everything is covered properly. I'll go ahead and do a teeny bit of sprinkle here. I want it to kind of blend with Dawson a little bit better. I've got too hard of a line right there. I'll wait for it to come back around. Just kind of sprinkle it like that. That just keeps me from ending up with too hard of a line right there. Where that's really dark right there is still plenty of epoxy on there. So I'm going to pause the video and clean off this little bit of white, put that back in the container, and then I will go to the next part. Okay, so I've got that cleaned off, and I am going to just kind of throw this on heavy-handed the same way I did the Moana. I'm going to start, oh, hello, good gravy, it's like an avalanche, bouncing everywhere. So anyways, I'm going to do that, just kind of start a little ways below where I'm trying to bring it up, and then just kind of cover it all. You can see how the super tiny spots are really filling in, or the super tiny fine glitter is filling in the spaces there. Don't be too worried about anything that's sticking straight up right now. A little alfalfa glitter. Because we're going to pat that down in a minute. Like right here, I've got a huge patch of glitter hanging out right there. Because after a few minutes, we are going to pat it down. Make sure you got your gloves ready. You don't really have to use your gloves for this part, but I am because I have them on already. So now I'm just going a little bit softer because some of it will end up above that line, which is fine. Super cute after we get it epoxied. So now you can see that we've got our white, Moana, and our chunky mix right here. So we're gonna let this turn for 30 minutes is kind of a good magic number. I'm on a little bit of a time crunch because of trunk or treating, so I'm gonna wait like 10 and give it a try. And then I'll show you that part in just a minute. Okay, so it's been maybe 10 minutes since I did the chunky glitter. I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle just a little bit kind of here. I don't want to go really on top of the chunky glitter because it, for some reason, I guess static or whatever, it'll actually hold on tight and it just stays on top of it instead of blending a little bit better. So I'm gonna go a little bit more here towards our top. I just feel like I've got some slicker spots here that they didn't blend very well. So that'll do it. I don't want a ton of white on here because the picture that she wants on here, I think it'll look way cuter with the pink. Because again, it's going to be the Mama Llama design, so I think it'll be better not having so much white on there, but I am going to go ahead and kind of sprinkle. I got one big piece of chunky on there. I'm gonna go ahead and sprinkle just a teeny bit on here. Not even enough to dirty up the catch pan, but just enough. I feel like that's pretty good. Okay, so for our pat down for the rest of it, I would not worry about trying to catch any fall off because I feel like it would have epoxy on it if you do. So just very gently, I would really wait longer than I'm waiting, but just very gently kind of get right here at the corners, right there at the base, because that's an easy spot to have a hard time getting it smoothed out. And then just anywhere else that you see something kind of sticking up, just kind of pat, pat, pat. But not hard, because then you'll like move it and make bald spots. So just kind of all over, just to make it lay flat. This will make your clear coat slash epoxy layer go so much easier. I did not do this the first couple of times that I did chunky, and I hated it. I felt like it took so much epoxy. See right there, I touched it too hard. I feel like it took so much to get it. And there will be some that you just can't get them to lay down, because sometimes the pieces, the way the glitter is cut, sometimes there's a couple of pieces that are stuck together, and that's totally normal. I know on Fine it's called hairs, but I don't know what to call it for a chunky. I guess chunks, maybe. So I'm gonna just throw a little bit right there, not even worry about the fall off, but kind of fill in my bald spot that I made. And then it's kind of flaking off as needed, or all the excess is falling off. So I feel like that's pretty good. This one actually laid down pretty good, so I don't feel like there's a whole lot to address, except for that one patch right there. I feel like I've got two chunks that are connecting pieces, and I'm gonna see if I can't catch it. Yep, got that one off. See if I can't catch them, and then just kind of smooth it out a little bit better. Keep whatever you're going to use handy, because you'll need it kind of sporadically. I'm going to watch for that spot and just kind of sprinkle. I feel like letting it sit for a little while before you start throwing on the chunky. I don't know what it is about it. I feel like it lands flatter. You can kind of see right here on this profile and this profile, there really aren't that many spots that are sticking out. And really whatever is sticking out, I'm going to address when I clear coat it. I'll either pull them off and stick another piece of glitter in its place to hide the bald spot, or I'll clear coat it and then press it down. Get a little bit more aggressive with it then. But it doesn't bother me if something gets on the bottom here. If a chunky piece gets on the bottom, some people are probably going to be a little bit more A-type about that. And I just see a couple of slick spots, so I'm just going to do this. Just kind of recoat it. I miss a lot. I like to chunk it and not make any kind of connection there. So at this point, I'm not worried about trying to save any kind of the fall off. I'm just going to let this turn for a couple of hours. Once it's cured completely, which will be tomorrow, not cured FDA requirements, but cured where it's not going to be a bad thing for me to clear coat it. That is what I'm going to do, because it makes a world of difference. It's a total game changer. Trying to coat this, it's so bad at repelling that it's just not, it's not even worth the hassle to try and do it without. So I just see a couple of spots that I want to go over again. I'm not super worried. This is one of my top colors, so I should be trying to conserve this, but that's all right. One time isn't going to kill me. I'm just going a little further into the pink on this one. So that's all I'm going to do for now. This is going to sit and turn for a bit while I work on a smaller one of the little kids cups that goes with it. And I'll show you the clear coat process in the next part of the video. So I decided that this line was way too high in relation to this line. So I'm going to do a little bit of a cheat. I'm going to hope it works out. If it doesn't, I'll end up making her a new cup and just using this as like a ready to sell, because you know it'll float somebody's boat even if it's not perfect. So it's the hairspray hack. So you can just use like super hold. You just kind of spray it, and I'm gonna attempt to do this and maybe even catch some of the spill or runoff, whatever. We're gonna see. I haven't done this in a bit, so I'm not really liking how that's gonna work out. I'm laying it on nice and thick so that I have something to sprinkle onto. This isn't really like the right way to do it, but it's gonna work for the purpose that I need it for, I hope. Just one of those hacks. Some people have actually said that they're able to do entire cups with hairspray. I have not been successful in doing anything except for maybe a touch-up with the hairspray. But, you know, some people are way more skilled than others. And there are definitely a lot that are more skilled than I am, for sure. I'm just going over this top part too, since I've already got a little hairspray on it. So I'm just going to just see if it needed a little bit more attention. So I moved my ombre down about, I don't know, almost another inch. So I'm gonna just kind of tap that along. I'll lay it on thick. I know that hairspray is pretty much already dry. I'm just tapping gently because I don't want a whole lot of fall off, because I do plan on saving this white fall off. So tap it a little bit more intensely whenever it's not going to contaminate. And then just for good measure, I feel like I need to blend right here just a teensy bit, because I do feel like I see a little bit more of the pink there, but I just want to do a teeny bit of pink on there. I'm just going to do this. Oh, by the way, this has been spinning probably 3 hours since the end of the last video. Okay, I changed my mind. I'm going to go back over that with the white. I'm trying to hide the pink underneath it. There we go. That's decent as far as like kind of hiding it. And then I'll just kind of sprinkle a little bit of Moana. I'm just going to kind of go over this kind of gently. I got a little heavy-handed just now in that one spot. I'll brush that off in a minute. I got a little obnoxious right there. I'll brush it off in a minute. But just kind of the further away you sprinkle it from, I'm about 10 inches up right now. The more dispersed, I guess is a decent word for it, it's going to be. And it kind of helps soften that line. You don't want like a solid line at your ombre point. So you just kind of have to camouflage it a little bit. So I'm going to brush off that spot that I got heavy-handed right there. It's just, that's going to bug me. I grabbed a dry paintbrush. I think the epoxy underneath should be cured enough. Nope, that was ugly. We're gonna fix that. It was on there really thick. I'll camouflage that here. I may end up putting the decal over that spot just so that it'll hide it pretty good. I'm just gonna go over that real quick. I'm not worried about catching that fall off because it's probably just a handful of pieces. If nothing else, that took care of the heavy-handed spot of pink. Not exactly the way I was intending, but it works. So now I'm going to let this continue to turn. I feel more comfortable with that being a little further down now. I feel like it's more balanced. Just the more I looked at it, the more I felt like it was so much pink and hardly any white at the top. So anyways, I'm gonna let this continue to turn overnight. That other whiny sound you hear is my spinet. I have one of the daughter cups turning. This is also Moana, and one called Elegance from Sass and Crafts. It's really pretty. It's white and champagne and gold and silver, and I feel like there's black in there sometimes, but I don't think there really is any black in that one. I use the spinet when I want either something just easy to throw on that I can work on in trim, or if I need to be able to control the rotation, like on sorry about that, like on a alcohol ink. And that spot that I just patched is kind of ugly right now, right there, but I'm not worried about it because in a little while, like when it's all said and done and cured, I'll actually kind of brush that down just a little bit, and then I'll clear coat over there so that it won't be quite so prominent. And again, once I have the epoxy over there, that's not going to be that visible. That's that spot again. Under the epoxy and under the Mama Llama. Either I'll position the wording or the llama ear or something like that over it. I can figure out some way to camouflage it. But one more thing I do is sometimes I kind of do this around the rim just to kind of take down that stuff that's sticking straight up. Just makes it slightly easier whenever I'm trying to smooth out the rim. I feel like it's just the top rim and the bottom rim, or the bottom corners, they're so hard to get smooth. It takes so much epoxy and so much sanding to get those smooth. So anything that we can do to kind of speed that along, I'll take it. But anyway, so this is going to continue to turn for the rest of the night. And then, or I'll probably just turn on the timer for about 2 more hours. And then I'll clear coat it tomorrow. Okay, so this has cured. It's actually been well over 24 hours, probably closer to 48 now. And it's Tuesday and I did this on Sunday. So we've got our blend here, and then we've got our chunky mix here. That little spot that I had to camouflage because I got a little touch happy. It's a little lumpy, but I'm gonna hide that with the decal. So that is not the end of the world. I'm gonna bring this down just a bit. There we go. Okay, so I have 30 milliliters already mixed up, ready to go. We're gonna go, I like to do it kind of heavy-handed. I feel like with the texture of most glitters, it ends up putting micro bubbles. And again, make sure that you have something underneath because I am dripping like crazy underneath there. Make sure you have something on your surface so that it will catch your drips. So just kind of do that. I clear coated this thing this morning, maybe last night. It all runs together. I don't know where I am right now. It's cold and rainy and I don't like it. I would not do well up in the Pacific Northwest at all. So anyways, I clear coated it with Krylon Color Master, just regular crystal clear. Nothing fancy. Some people use triple thick, which is an option, but I feel like that does the job. Basically, we want to make sure that this doesn't end up getting pulled out of position, I guess you could say. If you don't seal, your ombre will most likely be ruined, because you're going to pull one color up and another color down, and typically it's in whatever direction you don't want it to go. So just going to kind of do that. I'm going to hit this with heat in a little while. This doesn't have to be perfect. We need it to at least cover everything, but it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth right now, because we will be doing a second coat before we even think about going to the next phase or stage or step or whatever you want to call it. I've got a whole spot I missed right there. I may end up doing another batch of epoxy. I don't feel like this is going to be enough. It usually is, but sometimes on these glitters, the glitter ones, it just goes right through all the little cracks and crevices. So just putting that on there. You can kind of just get a feel for where you are. You can see where it is that you left off. Sometimes I feel like if I don't work fairly quickly on this, I feel like I can see the lines in the glitter, almost like the epoxy makes a mark or something. I don't think that's legit, but just something that seems to happen. I don't know. I'm probably crazy. I did have a couple of little pieces that weren't sealed properly right there. I'm just going to grab those and bring them back down to the bottom where they belong. I don't mind a lot of mine having a little bit kind of peekabooing creeping up into the top. I just don't want a lot, because it'll make this particular design too busy by the time I get the llama cut out on there. We're going to do llama in vinyl. There is an option of water slide, but you have to do it on a much, much lighter base. Some people can do white water slides. I have not quite perfected that. I don't have a machine that will cut close to the edges of my images for me. So for me, that is not a possibility yet. But some people are amazing with white water slides. Their machines will cut right up on that edge. I did recently get this Cameo 3, the Silhouette Cameo 3. I am very intimidated by it. I kind of consider myself a Jill of all trades, but man, I am so comfortable in sure cuts a lot with my old Cricut. I'm literally running on a program that I purchased 7 or 8 years ago, which is kind of crazy to think about with how out of date so much of that is now. There's so many better options now on the design platforms for the different machines. I know some of them require a monthly subscription, annual subscription, or whatever. I'm pretty certain that with the Silhouette machine, you get the basic software for free, like included with your purchase. Nothing's free, but at no extra charge. But you have the option to upgrade to different editions, which is kind of cool, because the business edition, you can create a couple of extra things, like you can create SVGs and then turn around and sell them later, which would help pay for the program. You just pay the upgrade, which I think is $50 from the standard upgrade, so it might be about $100 for that particular upgrade. Once again, my epoxy is really thick because it's really cold here compared to usual we're finally hitting fall weather, and I don't like it. I'm okay with cold. I just don't like the wet that goes with it this time of year sometimes, especially with Halloween 2 days away. It's supposed to be fun and good weather so that we can go trick-or-treating. But anyways, I'm just going to polish this off. I know I had some rougher spots. This is already, I feel like it's partly cured already, even though I just did it like a minute before I started recording. I finished stirring this. So maybe a combo of the weather and maybe I overstirred it. Who knows? So typically you're not supposed to scrape the sides of your cup. I do, because I am decently confident that I got all of it off the edges of my cup, because I do use that flat-ended stir stick. I have some stainless steel ones coming because I've broken several of the little ones that came in that other kit recently, and I only had maybe 5 that came in that kit, and I've broken a couple of them already, so I did go ahead and order some stainless steel ones yesterday. So hopefully that'll be nice. Supposedly stainless steel and silicone stir sticks cause less air bubbles. I have no idea how much truth there is to that, but I can report back on that once I have an answer. So we're gonna let this turn all night, or no, I'm gonna let it turn for about 4 hours. I'll turn the timer on, and then I'll come out. I'll probably take my X-Acto blade and just kind of shear off, like right here. You can see it when it comes around to this side. There's a little spot, well, I missed it, that has 1 or 2 pieces of glitter kind of sticking out. It's because it's connected to the one next to it. So I'll shear off that part that's sticking out, and then that way it'll be easier to throw on the next coat. I'll do that on any of these little pieces that are sticking out, if I can't get them to lay down flat. But we'll do that, and then this tutorial will not include the vinyl part, just this part. So I'll put another epoxy layer on it tomorrow. If it's smooth, great. I'll put my vinyl on it, let it sit, and epoxy again. If not, if it's a thick enough layer of epoxy that it's not going to affect my glitter, I'll sand it smooth and then apply the decal. But I'm not going to do all of that in this video, because that's pretty self-explanatory. You just wet sand. You have a fine, kind of medium to fine grit sandpaper that can be like a wet sanding block is probably ideal. I've got several around, just not within arm's reach. But after you have your second layer of epoxy on, you sand it really smoothly, just underwater, after it's cured and all that good stuff. And then you can decal on top of that. Any lumps and bumps that you have under the decal will be magnified. Some people think, oh, no big deal, the decal, the vinyl will hide it. Very few vinyls will actually hide any bumps or irregularities in your epoxy. I have this one that I did recently, and you can see the lumps in, there we go. You can see it just did not do well. I had to literally scrape off the water slide image that I had tried to put on there. It was a fail. It happens. I'm waiting on new water slides to come in, and then I'll do a fresh coat of thick epoxy on there and go from there. Another one that I had to Dremel off the lumps. My turner stopped, so this entire area right here, literally you can see air bubbles galore in that finish right there, because the air bubbles that were in there just literally pooled at the bottom, and it ended up so lumpy. I had to Dremel this off really intense. really thoroughly. That I couldn't do wet sanding. I had to literally throw on my mask, go outside, and just go after it. But this is a pretty fun one. The top's not too lumpy. I'm not too worried about it right now because I'm going to put my decal right there. Probably something along the lines of not my circus, not my monkeys, or maybe even the opposite. This is my circus, this is my these are my monkeys. But we'll see. But for now, this is all we're going to do here. I'm going to stop this video tutorial here because really it's not intended to be a beginning to end with decals and everything. So again, I'm going to let this cure. Tomorrow night I will come back and I will put a thick layer of epoxy over it again and let it cure, sand it if needed, and then decal. I'll let my decals sit overnight. Something about that, I feel like it doesn't allow my vinyl to lift as badly. Some people don't do that, some people do. I feel like I get better results if I do. And then once that sits, then I'll put a nice thick layer over it again and let it cure, and then it's done. So this is 1 of 4 cups for this order. It's the mom cup. I've got the 3rd kid cup spinning right now. That's that sound in the background is the spin it, in addition to my other motor. So anyways, that is that for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please comment. I'll do my best to check on it. Please subscribe. I'm going to be adding videos kind of hard and heavy right now, and then sporadically as I try something new. And I may get to the point where I record every video or every cup that I make, because sometimes I screw up and they turn out really cool and I want to be able to duplicate it, and if I don't know what I did wrong, I can't duplicate it. One of my favorite cups, I'll grab it and show. I have very little idea how I screwed this one up, but it is so cool looking. It's one of my favorite cups. This little veining right here, I don't know why it did it, but it looks so cool. It's got a little bit of rose gold glitter in there. Teeny bit of gold paint. This was acrylic paint mixed with epoxy. That theoretically should have been pretty decent, but I don't know how to recreate it, even though I kind of really want to with a few other colors. But it was a failed first attempt at marble. So just because something doesn't turn out right the first time doesn't mean it's not something that's really cool. See y'all next time.